Good morning, everyone. If you're watching this in the morning, this is Mario's Lawyer. Now, 2020 is here, but so far, we're too early into it to witness anything substantial yet, inside or outside the world of Nintendo. So naturally, our minds are still processing the events of the previous year, 2019. And while a lot of people are celebrating the conclusion of another year, I feel that not enough people are acknowledging the fact that we just wrapped up another decade of Nintendo history. And that's just what I'd like to focus on in this video. With that being said, let's go right ahead and take one last look at the progression and legacy of Nintendo in the 2010s. Nintendo entered the 2010s with their two most successful systems of all time. The Wii as their home console and the Nintendo DS as their handheld. For the first time in more than a decade, Nintendo was winning the console wars. But what was the secret to their success? Unlike their previous consoles, the Nintendo DS and Wii took a risk and primarily targeted the casual gaming audience with games like Brain Age on the DS, as well as Wii Fit and Wii Sports. The main selling point of those games was that they used the new features of the systems, the touchscreen on the DS and the motion controls on the Wii, to provide a more accessible experience for players of all ages while still being fun. In other words, you can play video games with your parents, or even grandparents, without having to say, no, this is how you do it, more than once. Yet, despite the fact that Nintendo focused on casual players during this time, they did not let go of their AAA franchises either. In 2010, we saw the return of many of their franchises, including Super Mario Galaxy 2, Donkey Kong Country Returns, and The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword came in 2011. Each of these games integrated motion controls into the gameplay for the first time. For example, Skyward Sword saw you slashing away at enemies with the Wii Remote as your sword, and the nunchuck as your shield, which honestly I kinda miss. Aside from the games, the console itself was discontinued in 2013, and despite being obsolete, it still got a revision a month later known as the Wii Mini. The Wii Mini was smaller and cheaper than the original, going for only $100. Discs loaded from the top like the GameCube, but it was unpopular because it removed both backwards compatibility with the GameCube and the ability to connect to the internet. Today, there's really nothing left of the Wii. The console's internet server, Wii Connect 24, was shut down in 2013, the Wii Mini was discontinued in 2017, and 2019 saw both the shutdown of the Wii Shop channel and a surprise game release for the console, though it would be the last. Because it was no secret the Wii and the Nintendo DS did so well, Nintendo made an attempt to continue their legacy with their next systems. Although in doing so, they forgot about the most important part of their recent success, the casual audience. Most people just bought a Wii for a hot new toy or a home exercise machine. They weren't interested in sticking with Nintendo beyond that. Because Nintendo thought that big numbers translate to a cry for encore, they designed their next two consoles to be everything their predecessors were, but one step further. Thus, Nintendo created the Wii U and the 3DS for their next generation of gaming. The Nintendo 3DS was announced at E3 2010, where its most distinct feature was introduced, the ability to play games in 3D without the need for 3D glasses. Despite a rough launch with no big launch titles and a 32% price drop only a few months in, the 3DS survived for a long time, and it was the only Nintendo system to be around for nearly the entirety of the decade. Not to mention, the system also received many iterations throughout the 2010s, the first of which was the Nintendo 3DS XL, launching a year later in 2012. The only difference there is that it had bigger screens. The next model was known as the Nintendo 2DS, which, according to the name, removed the 3D feature altogether and wasn't foldable. It was aimed more towards kids, hence the non-foldability so the system won't snap apart, and it was much cheaper than the 3DS. A turning point for the 3DS came in 2015 when the new Nintendo 3DS launched alongside a larger variant, the new Nintendo 3DS XL. Now this was essentially the Pro model of the 3DS, therefore it had a lot of new features. It had improved the 3D by using face tracking technology, it had some more buttons, it had faster loading times, and amiibo functionality. It also had better graphics, so graphically demanding games like Xenoblade Chronicles or Minecraft only played on the new 3DS. The problem with this was the word new was in the name of the system, which can cause a lot of problems if you're trying to buy or sell a 3DS on eBay when describing its condition. The last variant of the 3DS, the new 2DS XL, launched in 2017. Now this had all the features of the new 3DS XL except, of course, the 3D. But now let's get into the games. Instead of launching with a Mario or Zelda title, the 3DS launched with Pilot Wings Resort, which is basically a combination of the Super Nintendo launch title Pilot Wings and Wii Sports Resort. Because it wasn't a AAA title, it didn't exactly help drive 3DS sales at launch, but then Super Mario 3D Land came around later in 2011. This game, along with a price drop on the system from $250 way down to $170, helped get the 3DS off the ground. Now I like to think of this game as the real 3DS launch title. It's a brand new 3D Mario game exclusively for Nintendo handheld, which was previously unheard of, and it utilized the stereoscopic 3D effect, in my opinion, better than any other 3DS game to date. As for the rest of the 3DS library of games, it's quite port-heavy, which is to be expected for a handheld console. Therefore, a lot of what are considered to be the best 3DS games are simply re-releases of classic Nintendo home console games. There are ports from the Nintendo 64, the GameCube, the Game Boy Advance, the DS, the Wii, and even the Wii U, but perhaps the most notable ports in the 3DS library would be the remasters of the N64 Zelda titles, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, as they were some of Nintendo's most beloved games of all time. They were only $20 each, and you could take them on the go. As for the rest of Nintendo's legacy content from the systems I didn't mention yet, the NES, Game Boy, SNES, and Game Boy Color, select titles from those libraries were re-released through a service called Virtual Console, where they would be available digitally for an even lower price, but they were in their original form and weren't tweaked to take advantage of the 3DS hardware like the others were. Now, just because the 3DS was port-heavy doesn't mean that it didn't have some solid original titles. It got its own Pokemon and Fire Emblem titles, and games like Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Kid Icarus Uprising, Animal Crossing New Leaf, Mario Kart 7, Smash for 3DS, Kirby, Planet Robobot, and others gave superfans like myself, who already owned versions of its other games one way or another, a reason to buy a 3DS. The Wii U, infamous for being one of Nintendo's worst mistakes, launched in 2012 alongside heavy competition from the PS4 and Xbox One. Now, there were several reasons why the Wii U was a failure, but that's a video in itself, so I'll try and sum it up. First, its name and its marketing were confusing. People thought the Wii U was a special new controller for the Wii, not its own platform. And it certainly didn't help that marketing highlighted the controller, not the system itself, seeming to confirm this misconception. But most of all, like I said before, Nintendo no longer had the support of the casual audience to carry the console. But, failure aside, let's take a look at what the Wii U had to offer while it was around. The main feature of the Wii U was that its controller had a touchscreen built into it, allowing for gameplay that resembled gameplay on the DS as it involved the use of two screens. Unfortunately, like the 3DS's 3D feature, most Wii U games didn't do a whole lot to take advantage of the gamepad's touchscreen, which I found a little disappointing. Alright, got my game, and I am ready for this. Now, if I know anything about Wii U games, it's gonna be an experience. I can't wait to see how this game uses the Wii U gamepad in creative new ways for the gaming industry. Alright. Hey, alright, let's play the game. Alright. Yep. Come on, I just want to play the game. Chop, come on. Oh. Loading screens. Oh, come on! When I plugged you in a few hours ago, I assumed you were charging. Wait. The battery is fine. Wow. I paid $300 for a Wii U and I don't even get to use half of it. Wow, this is so lazy. It's almost like being a YouTuber and not uploading for 6 months straight. Wait. Regardless, there were games that used that feature well, and there were some that didn't use it so well. Now, the Wii U library of games is much smaller than that of most other gaming consoles, partly because the Wii U itself was only on store shelves for 4 years, and partly because while it was on store shelves, third-party developers felt intimidated by the complexity of having to design a game that would utilize both the gamepad screen and the TV screen. So Nintendo was somewhat on their own when it came to developing games for the system. Overall, I'd say the Wii U's first-party offerings weren't too bad. Sure, a lot of them were poorly received by fans of the franchises, but that's not to say there weren't some winners too. We did get an original 2D Mario and an original 3D Mario, we got Smash, there was Donkey Kong, there was Yoshi, and we were introduced to Splatoon. We technically never got an original Zelda, but we did get HD remasters or re-releases through Virtual Console of all Zelda titles on GameCube and the Wii. Combine that with how the 3DS re-released the N64 Zelda titles at the same time, and then I begin to wonder why Nintendo didn't blow up from all this fan service. I mean, if they did this on the Switch nowadays, people would freak out. But then I remember most people didn't have a Wii U in the first place, therefore this Zelda renaissance would only be available to dedicated Nintendo fans like myself, who did own a Wii U. However, Zelda aside, I think by far the most influential Wii U game in pop culture was definitely Super Mario Maker. Out of all the wrong decisions Nintendo made with the Wii U, this was definitely something they got right. Nintendo was celebrating the 30th anniversary of Mario, and so to celebrate they released a 2D Mario game which allows the players to create the levels. Combine that with the ability to play other people's levels online, and you will never run out of levels to play. This game was so popular that it gained a cult following on YouTube comparable to that of multi-platform games like Minecraft or Call of Duty, which is very rare for a Nintendo game, especially if it's only on the Wii U. Entire channels began to dedicate themselves to the game even well after the Switch release. Some of my personal favorites include Ryukar, DGR, and Dashi Games. Even renowned YouTubers like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye, generally reserved for non-Nintendo games, played the game, and viewers seemed to enjoy it.
I don't know how to use you, Wii U!
I know! A Nintendo Mario game on this channel! How crazy batshit insane is that?
However, even Super Mario Maker couldn't prepare Nintendo for what was about to be one of the worst years for them. 2016 was a strange year for both Nintendo and its fans. By this point, it was well known that the Wii U was nowhere near as successful as it was meant to be. Even my 6th grade self, who loved the Wii U and had no idea that it was failing, could smell that something wasn't right. Nintendo wasn't as enthusiastic about the Wii U as they were a few years ago, and it showed. So the spring Nintendo Direct presentation came around as usual, where Nintendo's release schedule for the coming year is more or less revealed. But they just didn't have any widely appealing announcements to make. The Wii U games to be released in 2016 would end up majorly disappointing fans of their respective franchises, to the point where those games are still considered to be the worst in the series to date. To make matters even more suspenseful, Nintendo had recently teased that they were currently in development of a new home console under the working title NX. However, they would reveal nothing more and continued to keep quiet about it well into the first half of the year. However, quiet or not, one thing was apparent. The Wii U was on its way out. But no one seemed to know what would happen after that. Strangely enough, Nintendo had announced that it had decided to start making mobile games in an effort to draw the much wider mobile gaming public into Nintendo's dedicated gaming console community. But why now? All that was really left of their dedicated gaming consoles at the moment was the 3DS, and even that had been around for 5 years. Then, all of a sudden, it was summer, and E3 had arrived, one of the biggest gaming events of the year, and Nintendo was about to make a shocking announcement. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, one of the biggest and later highest rated game ever made, was announced. But they didn't specify what console it would be for. The game could be demoed on the Wii U in the following days, but why would they put their most valued treasure on a boat that was already half underwater? But that question was temporarily put on hold, as 1 month later, as 1 month later, Nintendo's partners would release a mobile game that would quickly become one of the most iconic symbols of pop culture in 2016, appearing everywhere, truly everywhere. However, the traditional fall Nintendo Direct was near, but unfortunately, it didn't reveal anything particularly exciting. This presentation covered only Nintendo's plans for the 3DS in the near future. Nothing about the NX or any other mainline Mario or Zelda game was mentioned. If anything, the Direct was yet another nail in the coffin of the Wii U. Here's why.
It may look like good old Super Mario Maker, which launched last year on Wii U, but this is
Only a year after it came out, the Wii U's greatest exclusive was already being ported to other systems. If you somehow made it this far without realizing the Wii U had failed, this is a big red flag. Luckily, everything was about to change for the better. A month later, on October 20th, 2016, Nintendo finally did a full reveal of the console everyone was waiting for. The NX. From then on to be known as Nintendo Switch. The console's biggest selling point was that it was a hybrid console. One could play it on their TV and then take the console with them and resume their same game. All of a sudden, long gone is the era in which one would have to buy a handheld system and a watered-down port of their favorite home console game in order to play it on the go. Now they could take the same game, same system, same save data with them in the blink of an eye. As they announced the new system, Nintendo was very careful with their marketing this time around and made sure to emphasize that it was a home console first that could transform into a handheld. They made sure not to repeat their failure in marketing with the Wii U. The system was scheduled to launch March 3rd, 2017. In the meantime, Nintendo strategically released the NES Classic Edition in between the formal discontinuation of the Wii U and the launch of the Nintendo Switch, to hold over both themselves and the fans. Now, the NES Classic Edition was a mini yet faithful replica of Nintendo's first console in North America, 1985's Nintendo Entertainment System. The Classic Edition included 30 digital NES titles from which Nintendo first made a name for themselves with decades earlier. Technically, there was no need for this console to even exist since the games on it were, already available on the Wii, Wii U, and 3DS Virtual Console. But Nintendo needed something to sell, and the NES Classic Edition more than served its purpose, selling 2.3 million units. Because its stock was limited, every time it would reach store shelves, it would sell out right away. In fact, it was such a success, Nintendo would release an SNES Classic Edition in fall of 2017. The idea was still the same: take one of Nintendo's most well-known consoles and re-release it in a mini form with a set number of games pre-installed. However, with the SNES Classic Edition, they put even more work into it. Along with save states, they added a rewind feature where you could rewind the game if you made a mistake. In addition, they even added an SNES game known as Star Fox 2. It was developed and completed in the mid-90s, but never released since it was overshadowed by the Nintendo 64. I don't know, I kind of find it interesting that the last SNES game released in 2017. But anyways, by fall 2017, Nintendo was primarily focused on a different console, the Nintendo Switch. Though some doubted that Nintendo could redeem themselves with the Switch, it happened. In the first year alone, the Nintendo Switch had outsold the Wii U. The Switch likely owed a large part of its success to its launch title, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Though it was also released on the Wii U the same day as one last bone to throw the Wii U, Breath of the Wild would become a key part in driving Switch sales for the year. In 2017, the Switch saw the release of most of the essential AAA titles that it would need to succeed right off the bat. There was Breath of the Wild for Zelda fans, Super Mario Odyssey for Mario fans, a port of the Wii U's best-selling title, Mario Kart 8, for Mario Kart fans, and there was a sequel to another popular Wii U title, Splatoon. One thing was certain at this time: the Switch was everything Nintendo wanted it to be, and more. In 2018, however, things were a bit slower. The first half of the year consisted mainly of Wii U ports in order to make Wii U titles accessible to everyone who had never owned a Wii U, as the Switch was not backwards compatible since it took cartridges instead of discs. Then, the Switch released an online service. Yet again, Nintendo found a new way to release their classic games, as the online service would give subscribers access to a library of NES and later SNES games for free that would steadily grow about every month. However, it was poorly received by Switch owners since the online servers itself were poor. To this day, some games work fine online, but then there are some where the connectivity is just so bad that it's pretty embarrassing to say that you're paying for it. After the online service was released, 2018 ended with a bang. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate released for the Switch to cater to Smash fans, and it would perhaps be the best yet, with massive rosters and a steady release of DLC fighters to keep fans interested. Then there was 2019, which saw the release of a wide variety of great games. It seemed as though there was a game for every type of fan. There was Yoshi in the beginning of the year, then Mario Maker got a sequel, then the fan favorite Fire Emblem Three Houses was released, Luigi got another game for himself, and 2 original Pokemon titles released to finish off the year. And that brings us up to date. Thank you so much for sticking with this video through the end, and let me know with this poll. Did you own a Wii U? And if so, do you feel like it deserved the hate, or are you more like me and thought it was never really given a fair chance? My overall thoughts on the 3DS and Wii U gimmicks? I mean, they're fine. I mean, playing with them every once in a while is kind of a nice little experience. I mean, it's kind of like if you were to dine outdoors in the springtime in Minnesota. I won't pretend it's not actually kind of cool and fun. I mean, I definitely can't see myself doing this every day. It's honestly kind of fun. And I can't imagine it'll be my last time doing it either. However, one way or another, Nintendo gimmicks always seem to attract attention around you, so if that's something you like, great, do it in public. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta get back to playing Animal Crossing New Horizons on my Nintendo Switch.